His hand gently touched my shoulder before I could walk away. "There you are, sis. Mom's been calling you," he said loudly. I froze. I had no idea who this man was. I didn't have a brother, but something in his eyes, urgent, protective, almost desperate, made me play along. "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear my phone," I stammered. That stranger just saved my life, and I didn't even know it yet. What happened next turned my entire world upside down in ways I could never have imagined. Before I dive into this story, I need you to subscribe and hit that notification bell because what I'm about to tell you has more twists than a roller coaster. This isn't just about a rescue, it's about betrayal, hidden identities, family drama, and a revenge so perfect it still gives me chills. Every word of this is true, and it changed everything I thought I knew about life, love, and justice. So settle in, because this journey goes from a luxury coffee shop to courtrooms, from fake siblings to real love, and trust me, you won't see the ending coming. My name is Lillian, and 6 months ago, I was just trying to survive. I worked at Grandeur Cafe, one of those upscale coffee shops where a single cappuccino costs more than my hourly wage. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, marble tables gleamed under soft lighting, and every cup was served on fine china. The customers wore designer clothes and discussed business deals worth millions, while I refilled their coffee and cleaned up their messes. I'd been working there for 8 months, putting myself through night school and sending money home to my sick mother. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and I was proud of it. But 3 customers made my life absolutely miserable: Vanessa, Brandon, and Cassandra. They came in almost every day, always sitting at table 7 by the window. Vanessa was the daughter of some real estate mogul, Brandon's father was a prominent politician, and Cassandra belonged to one of those old money families that controlled half the city. They were around my age, maybe a year or 2 younger, but they treated me like I was beneath them. They'd snap their fingers to get my attention, complain about imaginary problems with their orders, and never, not once, left a tip. Sometimes they'd intentionally knock over their drinks just to watch me clean it up while they laughed. I endured it because I needed the job. My mother's medical bills were piling up, and my younger sister was counting on me to help with her college tuition. I swallowed my pride every single day and smiled through their cruelty. Then came that Tuesday afternoon that changed everything. There was another regular customer who always sat alone at table 12. He'd been coming in for weeks, always ordering the same thing, black coffee and whatever pastry we recommended. He was different from the others, polite, quiet. He'd actually look me in the eye when he said, "Thank you," and sometimes he'd ask how my day was going like he genuinely cared. His name was Christopher, at least that's what was on his coffee cup. He usually worked on his laptop, earbuds in, completely absorbed in whatever he was doing. That Tuesday, I was serving Vanessa's table when I noticed Christopher didn't have his earbuds in. He was just sitting there, coffee untouched, staring at his laptop screen. But something about his posture seemed tense. "Honestly, I'm so bored," Vanessa announced loudly, examining her manicured nails. "We should do something fun." "Like what?" Cassandra asked, sipping her overpriced latte. Vanessa's eyes landed on me as I cleared their table, and a cruel smile spread across her face. "Let's get the poor little waitress fired." My hand froze on the plate I was holding. Brandon laughed. "How?" "Easy," Vanessa said, pulling something from her purse. Even from where I stood, I could see the glint of gold, an expensive bracelet. "We plant this in her apron, claim it was stolen, and call the manager. With her background, who's going to believe her over us?" My blood ran cold. This wasn't just bullying anymore. This was criminal. This could destroy my entire life. "That's brilliant," Cassandra giggled. "When should we do it?" "When she comes back with the check," Vanessa said. "I'll create a distraction. Brandon can slip it in her pocket." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I turned to walk away, to maybe warn my manager or call the police, but my legs felt like lead. That's when Christopher appeared beside me. "There you are, sis," he said loudly, his hand on my shoulder. "Mom's been trying to call you. It's about Dad. We need to go to the hospital right now." I stared at him in complete confusion. His brown eyes were intense, pleading with me to understand something I couldn't quite grasp. What? I stammered. Your phone's been off, he continued, his voice urgent but kind. Come on, I'll drive you. We need to hurry. Something clicked, the way he glanced briefly at Vanessa's table, the protective stance, the desperation in his voice. He'd heard them. He was trying to get me out of there. Oh my God, I played along, my voice shaking, which wasn't hard because I was genuinely terrified. Yes, okay, let me just… No time, Christopher said. I'll explain to your manager. Family emergency. He guided me toward the back, past the confused looks of other staff members, past my manager who started to protest until Christopher said something to him quietly. The next thing I knew, we were outside in the parking lot, and I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Breathe, Christopher said gently. You're safe now. Just breathe. Who are you? I gasped. What just happened? He pulled out his phone and played a recording. My heart sank as I heard every word of Vanessa's plan, crystal clear. I was sitting close enough to hear everything, he explained. I record all my table meetings for work, and I forgot to turn it off. Lucky for you, I guess. They were going to frame you for theft. Tears started streaming down my face. This wasn't the first time Vanessa's group had targeted me, but this was different. This was malicious. This was criminal. Why would they do this? I've never done anything to them. Because they can, Christopher said, and there was something dark in his voice. Because people like that think they're untouchable. He looked at me seriously. How long has this been going on, Lillian? You know my name? It's on your name tag, he said softly. But I've seen how they treat you. I've wanted to say something for weeks, but I didn't know if it was my place. Today, I couldn't stay silent. I told him everything. Months of harassment, the cruel comments, the deliberate messes, the way they'd humiliate me in front of other customers. By the end, I was sobbing, and this stranger, this kind stranger, was offering me tissues and telling me it wasn't my fault. Go home today, he said finally. Call in sick. I'll handle this. You can't, I protested. You don't understand. I need this job. If I cause trouble, trust me, he said, and something in his voice made me believe him. Just trust me. I went home that night with no idea that the quiet, kind, regular customer was about to turn my entire world upside down. The next morning, my manager called an emergency staff meeting. I walked in terrified that somehow Vanessa had won, that I was about to be fired. Instead, I walked into a room where every staff member was gathered, and at the front stood Christopher. But he looked different, more authoritative, more powerful. Everyone, I'd like to introduce myself properly, he began. My name is Christopher Westwood, and I'm the owner of Grandeur Cafe, along with 12 other locations across the state. The room went silent. My heart stopped. For the past 3 months, I've been working undercover in my establishments to understand how they really operate. What I've found has been both encouraging and deeply disturbing. His eyes found mine across the room, and he gave me a small, reassuring nod. Effective immediately, we have a zero-tolerance policy for customer harassment of staff. Several customers have been permanently banned from all our locations. Additionally, I'm promoting Lillian Carter to manager trainee. She's shown remarkable grace under pressure, and I believe she has the skills to help us create a better environment for everyone. I couldn't breathe. The owner. He was the owner. That kind stranger who saved me literally owned the company. After the meeting, I approached him in shock. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? He asked with a slight smile. Besides, I needed to see how things really worked, and I'm glad I did, because now I can fix what's broken. That's when things started to get complicated. Within days, Vanessa, Brandon, and Cassandra were banned from the cafe. Christopher didn't just kick them out. He played that recording for their parents, threatened legal action, and made it clear that if they ever came near me or his business again, he'd destroy their families' reputations. Vanessa's father tried to intimidate him with lawyers. Christopher laughed in his face. Apparently, when you own a multi-million-dollar cafe empire, you have very good lawyers. But Christopher's act of protection set off a chain reaction I never expected. His stepmother, Patricia, appeared at the cafe 2 weeks later. She was ice-cold beautiful, wearing a white suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her eyes raked over me with barely concealed disgust. "So you're the girl my stepson has been protecting," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Can I help you with something?" I asked politely, though my hands were shaking. "Yes. Stay away from Christopher. Whatever little scheme you're running, whatever you think you'll gain from batting your eyes at him, it won't work. He's engaged to be married to Genevieve Hartford. It's been arranged for months. You're just a distraction." She left before I could respond, but her words haunted me. Engaged? Christopher had never mentioned that. When I confronted him later, he looked exhausted. "Patricia is pushing for it. Genevieve's family owns a competing chain, and a merger would be beneficial. But I haven't agreed to anything." "It's none of my business," I said quickly, even though my heart was breaking a little. "Lillian," he said softly, "nothing about this is what I want." But it didn't matter what he wanted, apparently. Over the next few weeks, I met Christopher's younger half-brother Nathan, a spoiled, cruel 23-year-old who made Vanessa look like an angel. He started showing up at the cafe, making inappropriate comments, and trying to intimidate me. Christopher warned him off multiple times, but Nathan didn't care. He had Patricia protecting him. Meanwhile, I was struggling to keep my head above water. My mother's condition was worsening, and the medical bills were crushing me. I was working 3 jobs: the cafe, night classes, and weekend shifts at a grocery store. I was exhausted all the time, but I couldn't let my family down. Christopher somehow found out. I don't know how, but he did. "Let me help," he offered one evening after the cafe closed. "No," I said firmly. "I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't take your money. That's not who I am." "It's not charity, Lillian, it's—" "No," I repeated. "Please, I need to do this myself." The hurt in his eyes killed me, but I couldn't become the gold digger Patricia accused me of being. Then Patricia played her trump card. She announced Christopher's engagement to Genevieve at a company gala I was required to attend as new management. I watched from across the room as photographers snapped pictures of Christopher and a beautiful blonde woman, both looking miserable but playing their parts perfectly. I left early, crying in the bathroom, feeling stupid for ever thinking someone like Christopher could actually care about someone like me. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. Genevieve showed up at my apartment 2 days later. "We need to talk," she said. Turns out, Genevieve didn't want to marry Christopher any more than he wanted to marry her. She was in love with someone else, and the engagement was her father's idea. She'd been watching Christopher watch me for weeks. "He's in love with you," she said simply. "And honestly, I'm relieved. Maybe we can help each other get out of this mess." We formed an unlikely alliance. Genevieve would buy us time while Christopher and I figured out how to navigate Patricia's schemes. But Patricia wasn't done with me yet. One night, I was closing the cafe alone. Nathan showed up drunk, pounding on the door. Against my better judgment, I let him in, planning to call security. That was my mistake. He cornered me in the storage room, his hands grabbing at me, his breath reeking of alcohol. I fought back, screaming, but he was stronger. I was terrified, certain this was how my story would end. Then the door burst open, and Christopher was there. What happened next was brutal. Christopher pulled Nathan off me and threw him against the wall. They fought viciously, and I'd never seen Christopher so angry, so protective, so dangerous. He beat Nathan until security pulled them apart. Patricia showed up within the hour with lawyers, trying to spin the story, trying to make it seem like I'd seduced Nathan. But Christopher had security footage. He had my testimony. He had witnesses. "Get out," he told Patricia coldly. "Take your son and get out of my business, out of my life. You're done." But Patricia wasn't done with me. 2 weeks later, police showed up at the cafe and arrested me in front of everyone. Embezzlement. Fake documents showed I'd been stealing from the company for months. The evidence looked damning. Forged signatures, fake receipts, money transfers to my accounts. Christopher was away on a business trip. I was alone, handcuffed, humiliated as cameras flashed and news reporters shouted questions. Gold digger caught stealing from billionaire boyfriend. The headlines were brutal. I spent 3 days in jail before Christopher returned and posted bail. He looked destroyed, furious, and absolutely relentless. I know you didn't do this, he said, and I'm going to prove it. He hired the best investigators money could buy, and what they found was explosive. Patricia and Nathan had been embezzling from the company for years. The documents framing me were created using Patricia's access codes, but it went deeper than that. Much deeper. Christopher's mother, Patricia's predecessor, had died 5 years ago. The official cause was a heart attack. The investigators found evidence suggesting Patricia had been slowly poisoning her to gain control of the company and fortune. Genevieve came forward with evidence too. Patricia had tried to blackmail her family, had been running schemes for years. Other victims started coming forward. Business partners Patricia had destroyed, employees she'd ruined. The house of cards was falling, and I had a front row seat. The trial was a media sensation. Every day, new evidence emerged. Every day, Patricia's empire crumbled a little more. Vanessa's father lost major business deals when his association with Patricia came to light. Brandon's father faced a political scandal. All the people who'd protected bullies and criminals were finally facing consequences. I testified about Nathan's assault. Other women came forward with similar stories about him. Christopher testified about his mother, about the years of Patricia's manipulation and cruelty. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Nathan faced multiple criminal charges. Their accomplices were exposed, their reputations destroyed, their fortunes seized. I stood outside the courthouse, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. Christopher found me in the crowd, and without caring about the cameras or the reporters or the spectacle, he pulled me into his arms. "It's over," he whispered. "It's finally over." The next 3 months were a blur of healing and rebuilding. Christopher used his resources to get my mother into the best treatment facility in the state. Her condition stabilized. My sister received a full scholarship to a top university, arranged anonymously, but I knew who was behind it. Christopher formally broke the engagement with Genevieve, who was relieved and grateful. She became one of my closest friends, and she's now happily engaged to her longtime girlfriend. I worked my way up in the company legitimately, learning the business, helping Christopher reform policies to protect workers from people like Vanessa and Patricia. And Christopher and I? We took it slow. After everything we'd been through, we needed time to figure out who we were outside of crisis and drama. But 6 months after that day, he pretended to be my brother. Christopher took me back to Grandeur Cafe after hours. The place was empty, lit only by candlelight. "That day, I called you my sister," he said softly. "I wished it was true. I wished I had the right to protect you, to be part of your life, to stand beside you." He got down on one knee, and my heart stopped. "Now I'm asking for the right to be something more, not your brother, not your boss, but your partner, your equal, your husband, if you'll have me." I said yes through tears and laughter and overwhelming joy. Today, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Westwood Cafe Corporation. We've opened a foundation for working women facing harassment and financial hardship. We've changed industry standards for how service workers are treated. Christopher's father, who'd been traveling during all the drama, came home and welcomed me into the family with open arms. The cafe where Christopher and I met has been renamed Grace's Place, after his mother. Every day, I walk through those doors and remember the scared girl who was just trying to survive. Every day, I'm grateful for the stranger who pretended to be my brother and ended up becoming the love of my life. Patricia is in prison. Nathan is facing his consequences. Vanessa, Brandon, and Cassandra? Let's just say their reputations never recovered. But this story isn't really about revenge, even though that part was satisfying. It's about standing up to bullies, It's about trusting your instincts when someone offers help. It's about how one act of courage, Christopher's decision to speak up instead of staying silent, can change everything. That stranger who touched my shoulder and said, "There you are, sis," saved my life. And then he became my family, my partner, my everything. Sometimes the person who rescues you is exactly the person you needed all along. You just have to be brave enough to let them in. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Maybe they're being bullied at work. Maybe they're struggling to survive. Maybe they need to know that things can get better, that justice can prevail, that love can emerge from the darkest circumstances. Subscribe for more true stories about courage, love, and karma coming back around. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the most satisfying moment for you? Was it Patricia's arrest, Christopher's proposal, or that moment when he first said, "There you are, sis"? I read every single comment. And remember this, your current struggle might be the beginning of your greatest success story. The person sitting quietly at table 12 might be your guardian angel. The brother who saves you might become the love of your life. Never give up. Stand up to bullies, trust your instincts, and believe that somewhere out there, someone is rooting for you. See you in the next video. This is Lillian, signing off.